Hello students, in this video I am going to explain chapter 2nd of science of class 8th. This chapter is all about microorganisms. So before starting, what are microorganisms? Let us discuss about whatever is going on around us nowadays which we can relate with microorganisms. The most frequently heard term nowadays is coronavirus. Yes, you have heard about coronavirus, but I want to ask a question that have you seen the coronavirus? The answer will be no. You might have not seen the coronavirus, though you might have seen coronavirus patients, but you have not seen the coronavirus. The reason is because this coronavirus comes under the category of microorganisms. Yes, this coronavirus is a microorganisms in the group of viruses. So this coronavirus is microscopic. What is the meaning of microscopic or microorganisms? Organisms means any living being, any living organism, and micro, this term micro stands for the small or very little, small to the extent that we cannot see it with our naked or unaided eyes. That is the reason you have not seen the coronavirus. We can see these viruses or we can see these microorganisms, but with the help of microscopes. There are instruments called microscopes which are designed and which are advanced to see and to analyze these kind of microorganisms which cannot be seen with naked eyes. So earlier the technology was not that much advanced that we can study these microorganisms in detail. So earlier we didn't had so much knowledge about these microorganisms, but as the technology got advanced, as the microscopes were advanced, we became able to know about these microorganisms. Our scientists have gathered a lot of information about these microorganisms with the help of the technology, with the help of the microscopes. So on the basis of that information that our scientists have collected in last years, I also have noted out some points about microorganisms. These points can be studied as general characteristics of microorganisms, not a particular virus or bacteria. These characteristics are applicable to all of the microorganisms. See, first is unicellular, multicellular or colonies. That means these microorganisms can be unicellular, that means they can be made up of only one single cell, or they can be multicellular. For example, fungi. Fungi can be multicellular and unicellular both. Example of unicellular microorganisms are viruses and bacteria. Microorganisms can also be present as colonies. That means when humans are gathered on a single place, it is also called a population, or it is also called a gathering, a colony. Just like that, microorganisms also grow or also can be present in colonies, in clusters. Second is they are cosmopolitan. What is the meaning of cosmopolitan? Cosmopolitan word represents that the organism, these microorganisms can be present anywhere and everywhere. Let me write here for you. They can be present everywhere. Everywhere includes water, air, soil. Inside organisms, other organisms body, like in our body also a lot of millions of microorganisms are present which can be harmful, which can be beneficial. In our body many microorganisms like lactobacillus are present which help us in our digestion. So they can be present everywhere. If you see a fist of a soil, there might be present millions of microorganisms, though you cannot see them, but they are present there. May survive in extreme conditions. Microorganisms are so much tolerant that they can tolerate any kind of environmental conditions. They can be present in the polar ice, they can be present in hot streams, they can tolerate any kind of temperature, moisture or any kind of environment they can survive. Form cysts during unfavorable conditions. Whenever they find any unfavorable condition, for example, the optimum temperature of any microorganism, for example, is 40 degrees Celsius, but the temperature around it becomes around 50 degrees Celsius or more than that. Then what these microorganisms will do, they will make a cell covering, which is called cyst. Whenever the favorable conditions will come back, the cyst will be broken down and these microorganisms will be released even in more amount, even in more numbers. Next is the mode of nutrition of microorganisms. They could be autotrophic, that means they can make their own food like cyanobacteria. They can be saprophytic, that means they can acquire or they can get their food from the dead organisms like fungi. You have seen many fungus, mushrooms are growing on dead trees. Those mushrooms are also microorganisms. And they can also be parasitic. Parasitic means these microorganisms acquire their food or their nutrients from the other living organisms. For example, lactobacillus, which remains in our gut, it remains in our intestine, it gets its nutrition and it also helps us in our digestion. Could be harmful or could be beneficial. These microorganisms are mostly harmful, but these could be beneficial also. Many of our industries are dependent on these microorganisms. In fact, our body is also dependent on some microorganisms for some kind of processes. These are microscopic. I have mentioned earlier that they cannot be seen without microscope. Without a specific device, we cannot see them with unaided eyes. That is why they are called microscope. Okay students, now we will see different categories of microorganisms, which could be bacteria, fungi, algae, protozoa, mycoplasma and bacteriophages. There are many more categories, but right now we will consider only these categories in this chapter. First we will talk about bacteria. There are some characteristic features or some information about bacteria. First is found everywhere. Like other microorganisms, bacteria can also be present everywhere and anywhere. That is, they can be present in soil, water, air, other living organisms' body. Everywhere they can be present. Even in our food, a lot of bacteria are present, which either killed by our salivary glands or can be destroyed in other digestive organs. Their size could range from 0.2 to 100 microns. This is a very small size, 0.2 to 100 microns. In this range of size, the bacteria could be of any size. Their shape could be of different type. They could be of cocci shape. That means when bacteria are circular in shape or spherical in shape, they are called cocci. Bacilli, when the bacteria are rod shaped, they are called bacilli. Spirilla, when bacteria are present in spiral shapes, that is called spirilla. And when bacteria are present in this type of shape, that is called comma shaped, then this type of bacteria will be called Vibrio. Mode of respiration, they can be aerobic or anaerobic. That means aerobic bacteria can only survive in the presence of oxygen, in the presence of air. On the other hand, anaerobic bacteria are those bacteria which can be present only in the absence of oxygen. For example, if we see aerobic bacteria, those bacteria which are present in outer environment like air, water and soil, they are aerobic type of bacteria. And those bacteria which are present inside our body are anaerobic bacteria. Mode of nutrition, they can be autotrophic, that means they can synthesize their own food with the process called chemosynthesis. This process is just like the process of photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, the organisms make their food with the help of sunlight. In chemosynthesis, organisms make their own food with the help of some kind of chemicals like nitrogen. They can also be saprophytic, that means they feed on dead organisms. They can also be as parasitic, that means they can feed on other living organisms' nutrients. Mode of reproduction, that means how they divide by the process called fission. Fission is called a type of, it is a type of division. That means if this is a bacteria, this will divide like this. That means when this cell of bacteria will break down into two cells, it will make two new bacteria. and they divides very fast. Examples, if we see E. coli, Escherichia coli, on which many of the experiments on microorganisms are being done. Mycobacterium tuberculosis, it is a harmful bacteria. It causes a disease called tuberculosis, or in short we can say TB. Lactobacillus, it is a beneficial bacteria which converts our milk into the curd. Now we will see the second category, that is fungi. Fungi are mostly present in humid area, that means the area or the conditions where moisture is present but the temperature is normal, optimum. For example, you have seen your bread, if you keep your bread outside for about 2 to 3 days, it starts showing some cotton like structure, some dark greenish cotton like structure. These are actually fungi which are growing on that bread and getting nutrition from that bread. They can be unicellular as well as multicellular. If we see example of unicellular fungi, they can be yeast. And if we see the example of multicellular fungi, there could be penicillium, there could be mushrooms, toadstools, etc. May cause diseases. There are some species of fungi which can also cause diseases in both animals and plants. They reproduce by budding and spore formation. What is budding? What happens in the budding? If any structure is there, then some small bud-like structures starts growing on it, and when these small structures, these buds are mature, they detach from the parent body, they travel through air and water, and whenever they get sufficient or proper surface, they stick to it and start growing. They can also be reproduced by spore formation. What is spore formation? In spore formation, what happens? Small microscopic spore-like structures are made on the body of the fungi, and these spores are released out of the fungi's body, just like pollen grains are released from the anther of the plant, and whenever these spores get favorable conditions, they start growing, they mature into the whole organisms and start multiplying there also. Examples could be yeast. Yeast is a unicellular fungi. You have seen that your breads are made with the help of yeast. The sponginess, because the sponginess in the bread are because of yeast. The holes that you see in your bread are because of the carbon dioxide which is released by these yeast. Penicillium is also a yeast. There is a antibiotic which is made with the help of penicillium. So these two fungi are both beneficial for us. So the next category of microorganisms is algae. Algae are kept under the class of microorganisms because unicellular types of algae are also seen. For example, Chlamydomonas is a unicellular algae. So these can be unicellular as well as multicellular. They are specifically green, that means they contain chlorophyll pigment and perform photosynthesis. So we can say that they are also autotrophic organisms. They, along with green, they also contain different pigments like blue, red, brown. These algae are categorized on the basis of pigments they contain. Body is called mycelium. These fungi make a body which could be branched or could be filamentous, and their body is called mycelium. Examples you can see: Chlamydomonas is a unicellular algae, Fucus, Sargassum, and many more other algae. If you want to see algae, you have to observe that around water bodies there are some slippery moss-like structure, green colored structures. These are also algae. They keeps floating on the water also, and because of that they are also called the grass of the water.